again. All right, we'll get started today. Now that we're streaming live, I'll need a roll call. Commissioner Cameron?
I am here.
Commissioner O'Brien?
I am here.
Commissioner Hill, there you go.
Present.
Okay, we're all set then to proceed with public meeting number 365. Really a continuing conversation with Chief Skinner. Good afternoon, and thank you again, Nikisha, for joining us again on this matter.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, so this is take two for this item. Excuse me. Encore Boston Harbor's request for amendment of its gaming beverage license. So at last Thursday's meeting, I presented a request for conditional approval, but Commissioner Hill wisely said no. So I'm back today with a request for full approval. So to recap, Encore is opening its Black Tier Lounge tomorrow, December 22nd. And the lounge is a new concept at Encore. The space is going to be dedicated to their Black Tier Win Rewards members. It's in the space formerly occupied by Garden Lounge, which is currently licensed. They plan to have complimentary food and beverage service in the space, along with bar top video poker machines, rendering the space part of the casino floor. Excuse me. The issue last time was that there was some minor construction needing to take place still. Since last Thursday, Encore completed those construction issues and were set to have a final inspection done by IEB. And IEB has given its full approval of the space, the surveillance system, and the alcohol storage plans. And Louis Lozano, who's the senior supervising gaming agent, he's present for this meeting in Bruce's absence in case you have any questions about his inspection. Alcohol beverage service hours will be between 8 a.m. and 4 a.m. As Commissioner O'Brien pointed out last time, the materials in your packet indicate that the operating hours are between 2 p.m. and 12 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and between 2 p.m. and 2 a.m. Friday and Saturday. Encore will need to test the demand for the space, so they'd like the flexibility to extend their operating hours as they see fit and providing the license for the maximum time would enable them to do that without seeking commission approval at a public meeting. And so that's why 8 to 4 is referenced on the application attachment.
Can I ask, Nikisha, the concern I had with that was sort of one was the inconsistency, which you've just addressed. And the other was the alcohol is supposed to be keyed into the gaming. And I know they've got terminals or whatever that are going to be in this area. And maybe Louis, maybe you can speak to this, but is there a way that we know that those are going to be up and running, that there's going to be some way of checking that the people actually qualify in terms of who can get alcohol service from 2 to 4? Like if they're closing at 2, is there going to still have to be some sort of review by IEB to make sure that if they want to continue to do that, that whatever the mechanisms are they use for the main floor in terms of the 2 to 4 alcohol service can also be followed and checked in terms of the gaming agents?
So I think my next point will address your question, but if not, please let me know. The second to last bullet on the attachment to the application talks about automatic disabling of the alcohol service buttons. So those will correspond. The the automatic disabling of those buttons will correspond with the closing hours. So whether that's 12 a.m., 2 a.m., or 4 a.m.
No, I guess I'm not phrasing my question correctly, but we had a lot of conversations about when we initially voted to allow them to go from the 2 to 4 period rather than having to stop alcohol service at 2, that there was, we talked about what the process was in terms of making sure people don't kind of come into the area to just get alcohol service that weren't already on the floor at 2. And so I guess my question is probably more for Louis, I guess, than you, Nikisha, is because it's sort of in a separate space, is there any concern at all in terms of making sure that they're complying with that portion of the alcohol beverage license that allows 2 to 4 service connected to gaming?
I can talk a little bit about that. I don't see too much of a concern. There will be currently there aren't any slot machines in there. The slot machines are on back order, but when they're installed, I think that will be the visual. So if somebody is gaming, that's how you know they'll be able to be served or not.
So they'll have to be only seated at. I assume not every seat has one of these terminals that will be at it.
Yeah, there'll be 8. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There'll be 8 slot machines on the bar top.
Okay, so only those 8 seats would be the ones
Yes.
that could potentially serve 2 to 4 once they're installed.
Yes.
And Commissioner O'Brien, if I can jump in, the monitoring of this would be performed in the same way as the 2 to 4 monitoring on the main floor, which there's some ability to real-time monitoring both in place and remotely through surveillance, and after the fact monitoring through surveillance. So we will work with the team as this new venue opens to add that piece to the routine monitoring that the agents have on their list.
Is this set off from the rest of the normal flow sort of at that hour?
And Louis, you can probably describe better, but it is on the 2nd floor. Do you remember where the garden cafe was? So it is a different area. One of the inspections that Louis performed was a camera coverage area, for exactly that purposes I think you're getting at.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and just to add on that, to be able to enter the new VIP area, you would have to go through the high limit slot area. That'll be the only entrance point. If you are familiar with the curving escalators, if you go up the curving escalators, it's the first. The previous location was on the right of the curving escalators when you went up on the 2nd level. But as they now constructed, they put up about a 3.5-foot fence to prevent people from entering that area from the curving escalators.
What's the fence made out of? I'm sure it's prettier than I'm picturing in my head.
It's nicer than any fence I would put up at my house.
All right, thank you.
So unless there are any more questions, this will require a vote.
Any questions in terms of the completion of the work, Brad? Anything that you have for Nikisha, you're all set. And as Chief Skinner's pointed out, they do anticipate tomorrow still as their opening, so we do need a vote to move forward. Do I have a motion? None of us have our documents open. Todd, can you provide the commissioners with motion so they have it handy? It would have been in the packet. You want to make sure. I think I have it. I'll pull
I
it.
have it, Madam Chair.
I don't know who just said that. Oh, Karen?
Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to read it and then someone can
Well, if
accept
you could
it.
just.
I have it as well. I have it as well. I'm happy to make the motion.
And it's different because that one has the conditional part, Gail, but I think you just do it without the conditional part.
Yes.
Conditions have been met.
I'm looking for the, I don't see a condition.
As we're looking for that, Nikisha, I had one other question for you in terms of the end of business hours being 12 or 2, but the authorization to serve alcohol 2 to 4, is that rectified or is that inherently authorized for them to change that once they come, do they have to go back to IB or?
It's my understanding that a vote to approve the amendment would allow the service for those hours between 2 and 4, should Encore decide at a later date that they want to extend their operating hours.
So would they have to come back though and just ask for an amendment to the face of it for the hours, or is that moot once we vote to approve?
I think that I would
No, I
defer
just-
that question to Loretta. I'm not sure whether that's required under their.
Right, is that ministerial in it, or do they have to come back and just ask for some sort of correction?
No, I just sent an email to you. Gail.
I think it's inherent.
I have it.
I have it as
I'm sorry,
well.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
I don't think they need to come back. I think it's inherent and it allows them to respond to, business, business needs.
So if they were to change other ones that they have the license for, change the hours of operating, the service of alcohol didn't line up with their hours of service, that's not a concern that we have, right?
Well, the license allows them to go on this venue, allows them to go to 4 with the restriction that actively gaming from 2 to 4.
No, I guess it's more a ministerial question I have, which is the stated hours of operation don't line up with the alcohol service. So it seems like it's fine if there's a disconnect there, given the underlying authority to serve. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
That's my understanding. Yes, that's
Okay.
Our operational approach.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to clean something up. Okay, great, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, I'm happy to make that motion at this point. I move that the commission approve the request submitted by Encore Boston Harbor to amend its gaming beverage license to add a new licensed area referred to as the Black Tier Lounge in accordance with the terms outlined in the submission contained in the commissioner's packet with the approvals that were discussed here today.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner O'Brien, you're all set. Your questions have been answered.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Cameron,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Brien, I went out of order.
Like a drum roll, like you expect me to do something different?
Did I hear an
Aye.
and I vote yes too. It's interesting. The 4 of us are in a corner, and I think I just went clockwise. And my mind is working in a certain direction at 4:01 p.m. here. So that takes care of that piece of business. Thank you, Nikisha, for following up on that, and to Louis, thank you for chiming in today. I don't know if you've had the chance to meet Commissioner Hill. I can't remember if Louis, if you've met him yet formally.
I have not. I did hear you made a visit to Encore, and I was unfortunately away on vacation when you made your visit. And I look forward to meeting you in person soon, Commissioner Hill.
Me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis, and happy holidays. Do we have any commissioner updates right now? Okay, then I think we do have a matter that has arisen today. We couldn't reasonably anticipate this matter, but it does relate to Governor Baker's advisory that he issued with respect to the ongoing challenges of the pandemic. And so I want to turn this matter over to Director Wells and Director Lilios. Thanks.
Thank you. So, as you know, the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, Department of Public Health, issued an advisory, and the governor made that announcement. So, Loretta, I don't know if you want to sort of go over the provisions, but the advisory has to do with masks and face coverings, and it now has issued an advisory that all residents, regardless of vaccination status, wear a mask or face covering when indoors and not in your own home. So that has some implications for the casinos. We should probably talk about our own staff and what's going on at our other offices, for in particular Boston. But maybe I can turn it over to Loretta. She has, I think, reached out to the casinos, or is going to reach out to the casinos to confirm their compliance with this as an advisory and what that would mean.
Sure, thanks, Karen. So the advisory was issued today, this morning. As Karen mentioned, it talks about mask wearing. The first part of it's a 2-page advisory. The first part of the advisory talks about urging everybody to get vaccinated and boosted because vaccination provides the most effective protection from severe illness from COVID-19. And then the advisory goes on to talk about, in response to the spread of the Delta and Omicron variants, the Department of Public Health now advises that all residents, regardless of vaccination status, wear a mask or face covering when indoors and not in your own home. And the advisory goes on to particularly urge this recommendation for vulnerable individuals and people who are living with vulnerable individuals. The 3 casinos are under a directive from the commission with respect to any advisories from the Department of Public Health to make those advisories known to patrons. And in that vein, I have reached out to the 3 properties, made sure they were aware of the advisory, and reminded them of their obligation to adjust their communications plan, their signage, their website, their social media, and to include this particular advisory. Of course, they've been through this type of drill before. They are well in tune to know how to do that. I sent that communication, I don't know, about hour and a half ago or so, and they will get back to the IEB and notify the IEB when they've completed that. I have every expectation that they will do that promptly.
Questions for Loretta on that? Did everybody get a chance to review the advisory? I think that it got distributed to you.
Loretta, so I know the mask mandates are done municipality by municipality, and the last time I looked, none of the towns where the casinos are located had indoor mask mandates. Is that still the case, or has anything changed since this DPH advisory came out?
No, nothing has changed. But previously, Springfield did have a mask mandate that was lifted some time ago. I frankly can't remember exactly when it was lifted. So there are no mask mandates at this moment in any of the host communities.
And are there policies in terms of the various casinos? And can you remind me again what the employee masking requirements are at the different casinos?
Yeah, so we went over this last week. Let me pull it up again so that I can accurately tell you that. So bear with me for just a moment. I just opened some notes from our meeting on December, but it was December COVID notes from December 2020. So we've been at this for a while, as we all
And the notes would be different, wouldn't they be? Loretta, has
They would
evolved
be.
and evolved and evolved.
So let's see here. Encore requires notification of vaccine status. Okay, here we go. They are continuing their practice of requiring employees to provide proof of vaccine. Upon receipt, employees are issued new badges, not required to wear a mask, but they may continue to do so. And of course, they've been had a vaccine program on site with a lot of boosters given recently. MGM continues to require employees to wear a mask regardless of vaccine status. Oh, that's actually not accurate. Salaried employees at MGM had a deadline to be vaccinated back in October. All salaried team members are now fully vaccinated. New employees who have come on board in the past few months were required to be vaccinated. They do have a badging differential between vaccinated and unvaccinated. Unvaccinated are required to wear masks. PPC, proof of vaccine status, is voluntary. Without proof of vaccine, employees must wear a mask.
But just an update on MGM, Brad, correct me if you had a different impression, but it's our understanding that all employees were expected to wear masks. The president was there masked, and we toured with his team, and everybody did wear masks. We were not required, but we both, of course, opted to wear a mask.
Yep.
So I don't know if
I stand corrected. That was my note, and then I got confused, but that is my note. That is correct. They are still required to wear masks regardless of their vaccine status. Thank you, Kathy.
I mean, my understanding is all of those positions are company specific. It's not anything we've mandated that they do.
Correct.
But it would be, I wouldn't be displeased if I heard that PPC and EBH were going the way of MGM for making the employees mask, given the advisory.
And I think
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that may be that may be reported to you soon on at least one of the properties.
That today's advisory particularly. Loretta, I apologize if I missed this. I just needed to get that liquor license signed. Did you also mention that the advisory said that vaccines and boosters were strongly urged?
I believe I did read from that part, which is
yeah,
the
good.
initial
I
part.
thought you had. Thank you. And again, we haven't formally addressed boosters because there hasn't been a mandate, but I think it is important for us to remind everyone that in many ways they're looking at the vaccination as a three series as opposed to a booster as something extra special. Its efficacy is really a matter of the 3 shots. So Karen, in terms of, first off, Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Cameron, do you have any questions for Loretta on the gaming facilities? And the time frame, Loretta, they're going to be able to turn this over very quickly and incorporate the advice.
I have every reason to think that. Like I said, they've been through this and have turned on a dime before on these signage and communication matters.
So you wanted to address our office policy too, perhaps?
Yes, I think that in light of this, it's appropriate for the commissioners to have some discussion about what to do with the MGC folks. We have obviously individuals at the casinos. We also have people in a Boston office that are not at the casinos. We do have an employee that works out of Springfield that is not not a gaming agent. So that would be incorporated in the Boston office sort of protocols. So I think it'd be helpful to break it down and start with the casinos. Given that we need folks on site while the casinos are open, there are a couple options that we could do now, given the updated advisory from the governor. We could leave it alone and keep things as they are. We could either urge or require our own staff to be wearing masks, sort of in alignment with the recommendation from DPH. So those are sort of preliminary questions. The other thing we could think about is authorization for either Loretta or the gaming agent senior management team to potentially reduce staffing on site. During the height of the pandemic, before there were vaccines, we had gaming agents just be on site one at a time, so that they were not exposed to other people, and they would be in the offices as opposed to on the floor. So my suggestion at this point is potentially to either urge or require masks for the folks that are on site, and then potentially vote to allow some discretion within the management team over the next couple of weeks, if things, monitoring how things are going, and authorize them to potentially reduce staffing or take other measures to ensure safety of the staff. So that's one piece, the casino piece. The other piece is the Boston office. From this advisory, it does not limit it to public places. We had been interpreting our office as not being a public place because we are not open to the public. We don't have the public in for meetings. We don't have public in for, limited meetings. I mean, internal meetings. We don't have the public meetings there, but this advisory doesn't limit it to that. So my thought is that we could change the policy in the interim, say until the next meeting on January 12th, and have working at the Boston office be voluntary. So people that want to come in, but that recommend or mandate that people in the Boston office, if they are going to do that voluntarily, wear masks. So those are sort of some issues for us to discuss. It may be easier to start with the Boston office and then go back to the casinos and see what makes sense. But happy to sort of hash this out and talk this through with Loretta and the other members of the team. I do recognize a lot of folks will be on vacation over the holidays, and we did work effectively remotely, so it may be that taking a pause and making this voluntary in the Boston office for the next couple of weeks may make sense until we get a handle on what's going on with the variant and the public health metrics.
Let's tackle the office first. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So what Karen's suggesting is we just adopted the hybrid policy at our last meeting. In essence, you would like perhaps a temporary suspension until our next commission meeting. And, but that doesn't mean that some folks do need to come to the office. I already understand that for access to their technology, but that if they came in, it would be voluntary, not fulfilling their 2 or 3 day in-office commitment, but they would have to wear their mask both outside in the public space, coming to our offices, as well as in the office while we're working. Is that what you're somewhat suggesting as a, and I don't think that's out of line with what a lot of offices are doing already. Gail, you're nodding.
Yeah, I agree. I had 2 previous meetings today where this topic came up, and I did advise folks that we would have an opportunity to talk about this later today, and I would make their concerns known. So I do think that taking a pause through the holidays until our next meeting in January makes a lot of sense. A voluntary program where people can come in if they need to or wish to, and others who may be feeling a bit vulnerable right now have the opportunity to voluntarily step away and work remotely until we get through our next meeting and see what the situation on the ground is at that time. So I actually thought that was a good suggestion, and one that I could certainly endorse.
And one thing I just want to remind the team of is that the casinos have parking, so folks are able, that work at the casinos, the gaming agents are able to drive to the casinos. But Boston, I think a lot of our staff takes public transportation, so it's not just being in the office, which, I compliment the commission for, having a vaccine mandate because it makes you feel much safer at the office. But people do have to get from their homes to the office, and there are people that are taking public transportation to the Boston office. So just, I'm mindful of that.
I don't have a problem with what's being suggested. We were talking before the meeting started about family coming in and coming from all over the country. So I think taking a little breather for a couple of weeks would be the prudent thing to do. And I'd be okay with that, actually. I've seen where people can work from home and getting the work done, and that's what we care about. It's getting done. I haven't seen any evidence to show me otherwise. So I'd be okay with the suggestion.
No, I agree. I was talking to Karen about this earlier. I think it's actually the prudent course, which is to pull back in the short term, particularly given the holidays and what might be a bump, given the behavior that's probably just naturally going to happen. So I think it's the safer way to go.
So Karen, can you just remind me of the date of our?
Yes, so we have another commission meeting on Wednesday, January 12th. So that is just over 3 weeks away.
It's a Wednesday. That's right. It's a Wednesday.
Yeah, on a Wednesday.
Okay, so January 12th, and then we'll just reassess
Yep.
if in fact, we'll say it continues through the 12th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay, so the other question,
I think you have I don't think you need a formal vote, just a
Yeah.
consensus that you have
Yeah.
the support from the commissioners. On
the one other question I had on the Boston office, are we going to require folks in the interim to wear masks in the office if they do come into the office on a voluntary basis?
Oh, I thought that I had said, yes, if they want to
Yeah.
come in, they must wear a mask.
Are
Yes.
people-
I would agree with that.
And then if people are alone in an office, can they take their masks off? I anticipate I'm going to get these kinds of questions. So if someone's alone and not with anyone else in an office, can they take the mask off? As opposed, and then the question is, if I'm at my workstation at a queue, can I take my mask off?
I would just go with the governor's policy. If you're not at home, wear a mask, right?
Yep.
Just so that you're,
Yep, that makes it easier.
walking in and out, and then no one's more privileged than the other.
Madam Chair, I don't usually disagree with you. But on this one, I intend on going in. And if I'm sitting in my office by myself, my health issues, wearing a mask for that long can be a problem for me. And I would want to be able to take it off if I'm by myself. If there was anybody in my office or I was to walk around, I would absolutely put that mask on. But I think I disagree with you a little bit in regards to if you're by yourself, being able to take it off. I don't know how others feel about that, but, and then again, I'm in a private office compared to a cubicle. So that may, be a little different, but.
And of course, I respect your need for any accommodation. I guess I was trying to simplify it for Karen because of what the advisory was kind of, it was well written in that it said, unless you're at home, wear a mask indoors. And that stuck with me, Commissioner Hill, but I am only one of four. Commissioner O'Brien and Commissioner Cameron, obviously, I do think the risk is substantially reduced if we're in our offices. I just am thinking almost from an equity point of view. But Commissioner Hill, whenever there's an accommodation that needs to be made for health, or and that includes mental health, we would work to accommodate that, of course. Commissioner O'Brien?
I mean, it may create some inequities, although someone could maybe go to a conference room and close the door. I think if you're by yourself, particularly if you're closing the door and not interacting with somebody, I think it would be okay to drop a mask in that circumstance. And then when you go out into the common area where there's no barriers, to the ventilation, that the mask should go back up.
I think that's reasonable too. I think it is an advisory and our people are really smart and they have been using good sense. So that makes sense to me too, if you're alone, but obviously we want to protect others. And if you're out in the common area with people, respecting them and protecting yourself is really the way to go. So I'm fine with that as well.
I am too. So we have a consensus on that.
Okay. All right, so that's
Okay.
helpful. So then the other question is obviously the state police and the local police that are in the gaming enforcement unit are their own separate entity that are required to be there. But our gaming agents need to be on site. So the question is, do we either urge or require masks on site? And then also, do we give some kind of authorization to the management team to adjust sort of scheduling and allow for some hybrid working and only have one person at a time if they determine that's appropriate?
Commissioners, who wants to start? Commissioner Cameron, you leaning in?
Yeah, sure. I think we've done well by allowing discretion to our directors and those who are in charge of a unit of work, knowing what has to get done, knowing what it takes to get it done. And now we actually have experience, right? We have had our gaming agents working in a single capacity to get the job done. And we've also had them working recently in more of the original style. So I am for providing that flexibility and really assessing what needs to be done and again, protecting our own people and the public. So if that means coming back to one agent at a time, I am in favor of allowing that flexibility.
Brad, you're nodding your head?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And then as far as the mask wearing, do you want the same rule to apply at the properties, that unless you're by yourself in a room with the door closed, you should be wearing a mask?
Yeah.
For the time being? Okay. And then I'll put an email out to the staff today, but that would be at least through January 12th, and expect that to be addressed at the January 12th commission meeting. Okay.
Karen, did you want to address, I think from a high level, the game sense?
Yes.
I know Mark wanted that.
Yes, so we spoke with Mark earlier today. Mark is going to be reaching out to the Game Sense team. As you know, there are contractors, our vendors for the on-site part of the responsible gaming operation. So my understanding is they are basically mirroring what the Gaming Commission is doing. So he'll have this information and he'll be reaching out to them, encouraging them to do the same thing. They're not technically our employees, but they are our partners with us in keeping everyone safe on property.
Any questions for Karen on this? I see no. All set? Karen, is there anything else you need from us?
No, I think that's it. If something comes up, I'll be reaching out, especially during the holidays. I'll still be available even on vacation time. So just keep you informed. But I think this is the smart move, and it's going to help just sort of get through this wave. My hope is that we come out on the other end and get some better news in January, and we'll see. But we'll update you on the 12th where we are.
Okay, then I think our next matter on the agenda is in respect to an executive session. Commission anticipates that it will meet in executive session in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to continue its discussion from December 20th in executive session relative to strategy with respect to litigation related to the confidentiality of certain documents and information, as discussion of the subject matter at an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the commission. And in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to evaluate a matter relative to the non-disclosure agreement between the commission and WinMass LLC pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 23, Section 21A7 and 205 CMR 139.02, as discussion of the matter in a public forum would frustrate the purpose of the statute, the regulation, and agreement. In order for us to move forward into executive session, we must vote as a majority. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion for Todd? Okay. Commissioner Cameron,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
and I vote 4-0. Thank you. I want to make sure that the public understands that this session will not reconvene as a public session at the conclusion of the executive session. So remotely, I will end this meeting, and those attending the executive session will enter into a different virtual room. I'll set top of that. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all those who participated in today's public meeting.